You guys ready for this one?
Oh boy.
From the Daily Mail. Get vaccinated or stay in jail. New York judges order defendants to get COVID-19 shots as part of plea deals and bail agreements, but is it even legal? A New York judge ordered a defendant to get the COVID-19 vaccine as part of his plea deal, while another made it part of a drug dealing suspect's bail terms. Manhattan Judge Jed Rakoff granted the release of a woman accused of drug dealing on the condition she get vaccinated. Another order came from Bronx Judge Jeffrey Zimmerman, who made vaccination part of a plea deal. Neither defendant appeared to object. I mean, to be honest, it's probably like, okay, I get to go, and that's all I got to do. The problem I have with this is setting the precedent of government-mandated medication, which we already have with like fluoridation and water and things like that. It should be between you and your doctor. You should go talk to your doctor, not have a judge tell you what you should or shouldn't do.
Right.
Or, we have Joe Biden now. Check this out. Joe Biden is calling on corporations. He tells companies to start mandating vaccines in speech celebrating the approval of the Pfizer vaccine. Hey, that's great. The FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine. Wonderful. Now, as same as it's always been, you can go talk to your healthcare professional that you know and trust and figure out what makes sense for you, and don't ask me for medical advice. But to tell all of the companies start mandating this, we are going to see a purge of sick people. And then what? They go on unemployment? Someone brought this up to me earlier. They said, have you considered that with New York mandating the vaccine with no medical exemptions, and now for teachers as well, and this push from big companies, they're going to take all of the people with medical conditions that are still able to work and make them unable to work, and now they'll be stuck on government benefits. Once again, just decimating the economy.
What do you think is behind these mandates? I mean, really, because are we to believe that, Joe Biden saying that private companies have to do this and judges saying that people have to do this on conditions of their parole? Are we to believe that this is the result of a genuine concern for public health? Or is there something else?
I definitely don't think so.
So what is it? What is it? Is it just power? That's it.
I don't know, man. Look at that Newsom. He doesn't want to do work. Imagine being able to just tell everyone to do what they're told and they do it. I think it's ideology, So it's just, man, people want power, It's like, you ever play a video game, you put in a cheat code? It's fun.
Right,
You're
right.
playing Doom and you type IDDQD and then all of a sudden you can just go around doing whatever you want, and it gets boring kind of quick. But that's basically what they're doing. They're like, oh, now I can just snap my fingers and it's done. But these people are not smart people.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you hired a guy to fix your toilet and he's a computer programmer, but you gave him carte blanche and you come in your bathroom and it's just spraying water everywhere. Nothing makes sense. And he's like, you leave it to me. I'll figure it out. It's like, oh, dude.
Yeah. Will you, though? Will you really?
But you know what? We're out in the middle of nowhere now. That's why I don't know if I care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while. It's just like, if these cities want to burn themselves down, let them do it. I mean,
if people aren't going to vote to recall Gavin Newsom, then, well, there you go. Time to move.
Right.
This is what I was saying. People were complaining because I'm saying get out of cities, and they're like, no, you got to stay and fight. And I'm like, listen, in New York City, staying and fighting was voting and saying no to this. And then they keep electing Democrats. They elect Joe Biden. You did. And and if people didn't stand up in enough numbers to actually make that change, then you did it. You made your attempt, and now it's time to go. I mean, I suppose you can try and stay, but my point is, if there's a bunch of people yelling like, hey, we're going to win if we all stick together, and then when it comes down to it, not enough people stick together, you tried. What more can you do?
Well, there was that one restaurateur in New York. I think he had a bakery, and he said that he's not going to, he put this big poster in his window saying, we don't discriminate based on gender, sex, anything, vaccinated, unvaccinated. Right. And they put that poster up right after it was de Blasio, after de Blasio announced. And they thought that they would have, like a lot of other restaurants, fall in line with them, and say the same thing. It's just like, we're not going to do this. Nobody did. So now they're just, the only ones out there saying, we're not going to follow this policy, and we're probably going to get charged thousands of dollars in fines. So even when you do step up and do that, you're not necessarily guaranteed to have other people have that bravery to do that.
You shouldn't worry about what other people are going to do to a certain extent.
Sure.
You should stand up for what you believe in. And if that means in the end they'll delete your restaurant, it's worth it. It's worth it to me. Because we see what's happening with these kids, right? You see that video in Australia where the 12-year-olds are getting pepper sprayed and arrested?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of videos that are like this of kids being arrested. There's a video out of Australia where it's a bunch of teenagers partying like on the beach, and they get arrested and they get fined $1,000. And it's like, to everybody who said to me, "Oh, I can't speak up and risk my job because I have to feed my kids," and I'll be like, "Okay, well, good luck feeding them when you're in a gulag. Because if you don't speak up now, hey, it may be harder right now, but it's going to get way, way worse." I mean, we're looking at the signs, man. Mm-hmm. Look at what's going on with Australia. They're building quarantine camps. They're putting signs on people's houses, labeling them as, unfit, undesirables. This same course, the same history has happened over and over and over again. It's almost like you can just track it to a beat. Here we are in 2022. What was going on in the 20s leading up into the 30s, into the 40s? People just go along with it. But I don't know. Like your friend who was cheering for the fascism.
Right. Yeah. Totally fine with him. But I don't know enough about Australia or Australian history to understand why that place is the one that's actually doing the full-on Nazi lockdown.
They gave up all their guns.
That's what happened in Australia.
So, do you guys know when Australia gave up all their guns? You can look it up. They gave up all their guns a little while ago. Oh. And not that I think people would go out and actually fight with their government. The left tries to use it as an argument because they always want to jump to the most extreme. If I say, hey, one of the first things Nazis did was target disabled people, making it harder for them to live, discriminating against them, then people will go, yeah, but the Nazis also did most extreme thing ever. And I'm like, yes, that was bad. That was really bad. One of the worst things in history. And they also did a bunch of other bad things before that led up to the point where people accepted it. It's actually what Gina Carano was saying. Remember that post she made that got her in trouble? Yeah. She was saying that they demonized people to the point where neighbor attacked neighbor, and we've got to resist that. They took her job because of it.
Yep.
So we're walking into the exact same thing. It's one step at a time. It's not like, that's what I always say. Did you think the despots wouldn't have an excuse? They're not just going to snap their fingers and become authoritarians overnight.
It looks like it was in 1996. There was a mass shooting in Australia, and they restricted guns.
So here's what happens when you have guns. The government, the agents of the state, are scared to kick your door in without a warrant. Because you are legally allowed to defend yourself. Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, when the police broke the door down, and they fired at him, he fired back and hit a cop. I think he fired first and hit him in the leg. They tried charging him with it, and he ultimately won. And in the case, there was no charges in the end because he was legally allowed to defend himself from someone breaking his door down. In Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK, we got these videos of cops walking in, breaking the door down, and just coming in and beating people and dragging them out. We don't see that in the United States because the police are concerned the citizen is probably armed. It's not that the citizen is going to get in a gunfight. No, we don't want that to happen. It's that if they don't do it properly, the power balance between the individual and the state are, at that moment, the same. In the UK, the state always has the advantage. So don't give it to them. Why give the state the advantage? That's a big difference. So I don't know. Australia, people just slowly gave up more and more of their freedoms, and while you weren't looking, Nazis took over.
So by allowing the government to take their guns, the government just innately realized, oh, well, now what's the next step? Because it's like you said, it's not necessarily that they were going to use their guns and arm in the streets and
it doesn't need to be intentional.
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't need to be intentional. It needs to just be that water flows. If you have a river and there's a dam and you open the dam, the water pushes through. There's no conspiracy among the water to make the water flow through. It's just the natural flow of things. So when you have governments that overreact and are panicky and don't like an armed citizenry, then you lose your guns. What happens when you have a population with no weapons? Tyrannical government easily just flows through those open gates. So, a lot of people, I think, assume that the quest to take guns away is on purpose. I don't necessarily think so. I think for some people, seizing guns is on purpose. But I watched this old gun debate thing with Rosie O'Donnell and Tom Selleck, and I've watched a bunch of other arguments about the 90s assault weapons ban and stuff like that. It's panic. It's people who don't know anything about guns panicking and then virtue signaling their way into banning them. And then what happens when you have a disarmed population? Tyranny flows right through those open gates, whether anyone wanted it to happen or not. Look, I don't know what you guys think about the mandates and stuff. I think if people want to go get the vaccine, it's their business. I just think excluding people, based on this stuff is
Mandates are awesome in the right circumstance. I think this is not the right circumstance personally. It's very exhausting to talk about this stuff because I don't know if screaming at a camera is enough to get people to change. But other than that, what else is there? I don't know. Self improvement. That's kind of the route I'm going in my life right now. Get better at singing. Get better at thinking. Get better at typing.
The vaccine mandates they're doing say that you have to have the military is doing it now too. You have to have your vaccines have to be up to date. So I was actually, this is really, really funny. I tweeted Vaxxer ID is racist. You see the joke I'm making? Voter ID is racist. Vaxxer ID. And then what happened was actually kind of surprising. The responses I got from Democrats said a vaccine card is not an ID. And I was like, what are they talking about? I'm talking about de Blasio requiring IDs to get into buildings. I didn't say vaccine cards, I said Vaxxer ID. Like they're using the vaccine mandate as a way to mandate identification. They didn't know it. And then when I actually told some people like the mandate requires ID, this one guy was like, no, it doesn't. And I was like, did you read the mandate? And he goes, yes. And I was like, then you didn't read it. And so he was like, show me where it says that. I sent him the link. And then he comes back 10 minutes later and he's like, oh, wow, I didn't see that part where it says an ID must be government, issued or whatever. And I'm like, yes, I'm talking about IDs. They don't know.
God, that could be a mantra of the 49% in that first poll you mentioned. Oh, I didn't see that part. That
Yeah.
could be like their mantra.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.